Hello, my name is Marissa Muskie, and today I'll be showing you how to do the tubular herringbone stitch, and specifically in reference to bracelets. Now, you should be able to use this for earrings or keychains and stuff like that, but this is what I'm going to be making today. So let's jump right into the supplies. Alright, so the first thing, of course, that you'll need is beads. So we'll be doing 3 rows. These will be one of each of the rows. We'll have 2 beads per row. And then I'm actually also going to use these for our loop. I would recommend having 2 larger beads as well, which I'm going to use these 2. These are just for each end of the loop. So because you're going to be passing through these a couple of times, it is helpful, in my opinion, to have this be a bigger bead than the rest. But you can try to squeeze in a smaller one that matches if you don't have access to one of these. And I think I usually go for like a size 8. The other thing you will need is your needle and some thread. I'm going to grab black thread because it matches, but for the thread length, I would say I usually grab about 4 to 5 feet long of thread, so usually about 1.5 arms length. So this is specifically, again, for a bracelet. So if you're going to be doing earrings, you probably need a little less than that. And then, of course, bracelet, I need a little clasp. If you are going to be doing earrings, you'd want an earring hook instead. And that should do it. So let's get started. Just a quick note as well before we start, you can start with a smaller amount of thread if you feel like that's necessary. I just prefer longer amounts of thread because I hate rethreading. So yeah, we're going to start with a larger amount. Without further ado, let's begin. I'm going to grab a big bead, and then for the loop, I'm going to do 4 of my white beads. And then I'll go in through the clasp. And then 4 more white beads. This. And then you'll want to pull that all the way through to the end and give yourself about like a 4-inch tail. Okay, so we are at the end. What I want to do is, this is our loop. So I have the end in my hand right here. I'm going to go up through the big bead and just pull my thread all the way through. See, that has formed our loop. From this loop, we're going to make little trios. So to make these, we're going to grab 3 beads. I'm going to grab 3 of one color because we're just going to be doing stripes. So grab 3, pull these all the way to the end. Once you have these at the end here, your needle, go through just the very last one, or technically the first one you put on. So this one right here, see how the 2 hang closest to the base, and then I like to go through them all at once. But you go through the big bead and then through one side of your loop as well. It doesn't really matter which side. And then pull it all the way through. You see, this kind of likes to stick up. So just to make it a little bit easier, I like to just flatten it out and likes to be difficult, so push them around if it's not working. And then essentially we just want to go through the loop. So coming out of this bead right here, and I'm just going to follow the loop and move my thread right on through. So came out over here, going through there. And I, throughout this process, am holding my tail right here because you can kind of see here. It likes to get loose. This is just the tail coming out. As you work, this should be less of an issue, but just keep holding it until it kind of gets established. And coming out of that white bead, we basically want to do the same thing we started out with. We're going through just our big bead right here, going through. So now we're coming out of the big bead, and we want to do our next trio. I'm going to grab 3 of my purple, and again, pull it all the way to the end. And skip over those 2 beads, and just go through the one closest to the big bead. Go through the big bead as well. And one side of your loop. And pull through. That one wanted to lay flat for me. And then just complete the loop. Coming out here, and go back through the other side of our loop. Tight. And then go back through just the big bead. Okay, now we come out of a big bead. We're going to do our last trio. And you can do more of these on here, but I prefer 3. So that's how many we're going to do. Again, grab 3 beads. Pull those all the way to the bottom. I find it helps me if I hold a thread in between my 2 fingers like that. Go out the bead closest to the big bead. The other 2 can just there. Go through the big bead, as well as one side of your loop. And pull through. And then just go through the rest of the loop like normal. There we go. There's our start. Alright, so from here, you'll want to go up through the big bead and pull through. And then you want to go up through any of your little trios here. It doesn't really matter unless you're going with a specific pattern, but I'm closest to the purple, so I'm going to go through there. You want to go through one at the base, one of these beads at the base, and then one on the top. It doesn't matter too much either which one on the top you go with, because these you can actually flip around if you're on the wrong side. Again, if you're using a specific pattern. We're just doing stripes, so it doesn't matter too much. Alright, and you see it came out of the top over purple. So I prefer to go left to right. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick up 2 purple. And then go through purple bead next to where we came out. And pull through. You see here that our 2 beads came out of here, went back and went down through the bead next to it. And now we have 4. So to get to our next tree, we're coming out of the bottom here. We're gonna go up through the black bead next to the one we're coming out of and pull through. We've gone down there and up here. Alright, so you're coming up through that black bead. I'm gonna grab 2 more black beads. And we're gonna go down through the black bead next to where we're coming out. This is again gonna be right of where we're coming out of. And just pull that through. We can also stick up, so again, we just kind of flatten it out with our finger. And now we have more on this little trio. Now we're gonna go to orange. So we're coming out of this black bead here. We want to go up through the orange next to it and pull through. Coming out of the top here, so we grab 2 orange beads and go down through the bead to the right of where we came out of and pull through. Now we have 4 in this one as well. So instead of going up through 1 like we have been doing to get to the next row, we're going to do a thing that's called stepping up. So instead of going through 1, go through 2. So this is the purple one where we already had 4. We don't really need to go through 1. Go through 2 and pull through. Alright, let's move on to the next row. So we're starting out with purple. Again, we're doing stripes, so I'm going to grab 2 purple beads. We're coming out of the purple bead on the left. We're going to go down through the purple bead on the right. And this is just one. We've already done our stitches on the one below that, so we don't need to worry about it. So 2 through just the 1 purple bead on the right and pull through. Now we have 6. And we're going to go up through the black bead next to where we came out. Again, we're not going through two, just one. We're going to grab 2 black beads. We're coming up through the bead on the left. We're going to go down through the bead on the right and pull through. And again, we're just going through one. If you ever get kind of lost on which bead you should be going in through, there should be a thread connecting this one right here, the one on the lower right of the black beads, and the orange on the lower left, the orange beads. There's a small thread right here. There will not be a small thread right here connecting this bead that we're coming out of and the bead that we're going to go into, because we're creating that right now. So if you ever get lost, just look for the thread. If it's there, you should be good. If it's not, we still need to go through. So continue to pull that through. Now we have 6. So again, we're going to go through just one of the orange beads next to the black bead we came out of. We're going to do 2 orange beads and go through the orange bead on the right of where we came out and pull through. Now we got to do our stepping up row. So again, this is kind of where you can see that hip applying as well if you're kind of at the end. A bit hard to see, but there's that thread in between those two right there, connecting the orange and the purple. What we want to do, since we're doing the step up row, is connect these 2 oranges to these 2 purples and come out of the top so that we can do our next row. So you can see us creating that little thread in between in action here. And that just pulls it together to create the tube shape. So let's do one final row and then we will move on to the clasp. So 2 purple beads picking up. Coming out of this purple here, I'm going to go through the purple on the right of that one and pull through. And to connect these, I'm going to go through just one black bead next to it, especially because we can see that these 2 beads are already connected. We do not need another connection there. Pull it tight. We're going to grab 2 black beads. Coming out of the left, we're going to go through the right. It likes to stand up, so we just flatten it. And you go through the orange bead next to where we're coming out of. Up to orange. Went out of the left. I'm gonna go through one of the right. Pull through. And we can see that there's no thread connecting these, so this is the step up. We go through 2 instead of 1 of our purple row. and pull through. There we go, and you can kind of see that tube starting to take shape. So that is pretty much how you do that. And then I'll meet you back to the end so we can do the final loop. But yeah, just keep doing this till you get your desired length. I find that 7-ish, 7 to 8 inches is usually an appropriate length. So yeah, see you in a few. Alright, so we are now at the end. This ended up being about 6.5 inches long. So we're now going to make our final loop. And I did actually have to add some more thread in the middle here, probably about around this. So I ended up adding around 2 feet of extra thread. So I suppose the actual amount you might need is probably closer to 6 or 7 feet of thread. But alright, so we're pretty much going to do the exact opposite of what we did to start it. So I want to grab one purple bead, that is where we're coming out from. And we're going to get our big bead. And then you can kind of make this loop however long you want it to be. I'm going to do 10 beads on either side. I like that length. So there's 10. I'm going to pull that down. And then you can just do a standard loop. I happen to have a jump ring on the end of these clasps. So I'm going to add that. And then we'll do another 10. I'll pull that down. And then just pull it all the way to the end. And kind of like we did to start, we're going to go through just the big bead as well as the purple bead we just put down, and then go through the purple bead to the right. And just that one, similar to how we did the rose earlier. And pull through. So just like we did the other rose, we're going to go through the black bead right next to it. Pull through. Then we'll grab one black bead. And then we're basically just going to go through our loop again. So just through our big bead, as well as one side of our loop. And you might have to take this in segments, but that's perfectly okay. And just pull through. Going through the loop. Through all the beads in the loop. Go through your big bead, as well as the black bead laid down in the beginning. Turn this around. So, facing it like this, I want to go through the bead on the right. So the bead next to where we initially came out of. Just pull through. And we're going to go in through the bead right next to where we're coming out. And just like the other rows, we're going to grab an orange bead. Go through the big bead and the rest of the loop. And then to finish it off, go through the big bead. What is the orange one? And then through the orange bead to the right of where we initially came out of. And then do our final stitch. I'm going to go into the purple bead right next to the orange one we're coming out of. And from this point, you can kind of just weave your thread in. So I like to go through the rows a couple times. I just go in here, go up a couple, through, and I believe I've heard that 3 times around is usually good. But if you want to feel extra secure, you can do a couple extra. The only thing you might want to pay attention to when you're weaving these ends in is that wherever you come out, you want to go in through the bead right next to it, because otherwise the thread is going to be crossing the rows. So that looks good to me. Just snip that off. Alright, that is everything you need to know about how to do the tubular herringbone stitch, specifically in a context for a bracelet. If you do have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer those. Yeah, I will see you in the next one. Bye!